Before I start to show you how to develop a basic set of working drawings for the Footstool project, I thought it would be a good idea just to have an overview of the general features that should exist in all working drawings. For example, this is drawing 1 of 6. So in this particular set, there are 6 sheets with different elements of the drawing. And the idea is that over those 6 sheets, all of the information that would be required, particularly dimensional information that would be required for you to produce a footstool, is included. So on the first sheet, it is usually the general assembly drawing, and you'll see down in the title block that I've got going across the bottom here, I've got the name General Assembly there. Other features that you need to have on the page are, you can see centered at the top, all dimensions in millimeters. Now it doesn't need to be there in particular, I just do it there as standard, and I have that on all of my sheets. And what that means is it specifies the units, and it means then I don't have to put mm or specify the units after any of the measurements. I can just have the number there. The other thing that you'll notice is the arrangement of the views. So you can see down in the bottom left is the front view. Directly above it is the top view. Then off to the right is the side view, or it could be the right side view. And then we've got some sort of pictorial view up in the top right corner there, just to kind of show, sort of in a more pictorial view what the complete project looks like. You can also see there some basic dimensions. Now this particular general assembly sheet is not fully dimensioned. I've just put some basic dimensions on there to get the sense of, what is the overall height of it, what's the overall length of it, what's the overall width of it. Down along the bottom, you'll see the title block. Now I do manufacture this title block myself. I don't like the standard one that comes with Fusion. And I am going to show you sort of briefly how that can be done, although it's not necessary that it is done my way. One of the reasons why I like to do it is because it has all of the basic information that you would require for this kind of drawing. So for example, going from left to right, you can see that it's got the overall title of the project. You've got the name of the drawing in particular, the name of the person who did the drawing, the date of the drawing, the scale, the projection symbol, and the drawing number. Now you can have other information on the page, but that's the bare minimum. All text is in uppercase, and that's an AS 1100 drawing convention. And what my advice to you is, if you're doing any dimensioning or writing any text, is press the caps lock button. Have all text in uppercase. I could go into that a lot more, but I don't need to overburden you with too much information. The other thing that you will notice is that the dimensioning is done in such a way that you can read it from the bottom and from the right-hand side of the drawing. And so that's why the numbering is oriented those ways. Now, if we go on to the second drawing, so now we're getting into some finer detail. And in terms of this particular drawing, one of the most complicated parts of the entire project are the front and back rails. And so you can see here, this can be a little bit difficult to interpret. So what I've done is I've kept some dimensions on the general sort of drawing, but I've also then created an exploded view up in the top right here. Where you can actually get a bit closer in at a bigger scale, 1 to 3, and so you can actually just see some of the dimensions that are going on up there. Another thing to be aware of, and to some extent I've kind of broken this rule a little bit, is to not have redundant dimensions. So don't dimension something twice, dimension it only once. Now, what you can see here is that generally I have achieved that, although you can see in the detail view that I have actually repeated some dimensions up in there, which is strictly not correct. The other thing that I have done, and this is this is sort of my advice, is that sometimes it's easier, rather than to put dimensions onto a drawing, it's actually easier to put in an arrow with text and to kind of describe what's going on there. So you can see I've got a few of those on the drawing. And then down in the bottom right corner, I've actually put in a little summary of the overall dimensions of the front rail, and then just a very brief summary of the different processes that need to take place on it. Now, again, that's not strictly AS 1100, but I have put that there just as another little summary, which should help you in the workshop. On the actual procedure document, those steps will be broken down into much greater detail. I'll then go through to the final drawing in the series, so drawing 6 of 6. And this is basically just an exploded view where I've removed the seat. And the idea of the exploded view is just to give you a sense of how the project is assembled together. I've got another version of this at the beginning of this video as well, which gives you an animated representation. But you can see down the bottom right corner is a parts list. Fusion does have the capability to create automatically parts lists. I choose not to do that because there are some constraints in Fusion that I don't like. Whereas for a woodworking project, a parts list needs to have the information that I have there. One of the things that Fusion will do, it'll put in a part number, and that's not a bad thing to have. But at the end of the day, what I really want is I want a clearly defined item, front rail, back rail, legs, side rails, internal rails, seat. How many of those components exist, what their overall dimensions are, their overall finished dimensions, what material they are. Now I've put American cherry in there, that's because that's what I'm using, but it could be something else. And if there's any particular notes that are relevant. So again, I will show you briefly how to produce that parts list. It's actually fairly simple to do in Fusion. There's some examples of what I'm overall looking for in a Fusion drawing. Again, you can see up the top, all dimensions in millimeters is there. It's on all sheets. And then I've just made some notes there. The seat is removed for clarity, so that's why we can't see the seat. And it is an exploded view, and it is not to scale.